CV and instead trying a different approach, as John Sudworth reports from Shanghai.
China produces 7 million job-hungry graduates every year.
How excited would you be to work somewhere like L'Oreal?
It's beyond words.
There's no shortage of enthusiasm, of course, but with such large numbers, how does a company go about choosing the best? Well, the French cosmetics company L'Oreal has been doing what pretty much everyone else is doing, limiting their search to China's top-tier universities.
We want to assess you for the culture, for the style, for the fit of L'Oreal.
It's a problem that recruiters everywhere will be familiar with. There's simply no time to read every CV. And so, despite knowing they could be excluding a lot of potential talent, if the candidate didn't go to a top school, their CV is automatically rejected. At least until now, that is, because this year L'Oreal in China has decided to do away with this mountain of paperwork and replace it with something that every student has, regardless of educational background: the mobile phone. All they need to do is get online and use their mobile phones to answer 3 simple questions. If you're given an assignment but the instructions are unclear, this one reads, how would you go about completing it to a high standard? Their answers are fed into the computer system of this Shanghai-based startup company by analysing the language used.
So, 1,000.
The vocabulary and sentence structure, the software designers claim to be able to make accurate predictions about key personality traits.
If you look at computers, they have no emotions, they have no moods. So you can program it to act like an ideal human that would judge these answers without any sort of color, any sort of bias. And that's what we've done here.
Laurel Sun is one of those who almost certainly wouldn't have made it to the interview stage before, but her high computer score means now she's in with a chance. And so to decision time. This year, of the 70 new recruits, more than 1/3 come from universities that wouldn't previously have been considered.
Do you think it was a good fit? What we're really looking for in students is raw talent. You want people that are a better fit to your company culture, a better fit to the competencies that you look for, and they're not necessarily going to have those competencies just because they went to this university or worked at this company before.
As for Laurel,
How did you do, Laurel?
Hi.
You've got it?
well, she made it through the interview. One life changed by a computing revolution in recruitment. John Sudworth, BBC News, Shanghai.
Well, to discuss this further with me here in the studio is Paul Finch, who's Managing Director of Kinetic, an online recruitment technology company. Paul, thanks very much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Do you see this as the way of the future?
I do. I think CVs are a sales document, and like many sales documents, have open to be embellished, shall we say, about some truths about ourselves that we'd rather like to see rather than actually what there is. So I think what L'Oreal have achieved is, I think, in a way, a panacea. They're looking into behavioural profiling. What are the real ingredients that make a person successful? And I think trying to draw that out of traditional processes is very challenging.
Because there's new research that says that nearly half of those who are recruited end up being duds and end up leaving anyway a few months after. I
think if you look at the statistics, something like an open hire, a hire from the open market, you're carrying 80% risk, whereas, for example, a referral for a personal friend of yours, that is probably running at 10%, perhaps 20% risk. So how do you actually reduce the risk? And I think CVs generally tend to sort of an embellishment of perhaps of your capabilities as you see them, actually might not fit with the organisation's needs. So an organisation needs technical skills and they need competency, but more than anything they need attitude. So how do you bring out attitude in a piece of paper?
And how exactly do you bring out attitude in a computer?
Because with things, the in phrase in the world of recruitment technology is gamification. Gamification is tapping into games basically with questions, so that's what I think the L'Oreal technology was all about. And we're live on this ourselves. So how do you incite a bit of a game to play? People are on their phones, mobile devices. It's quite easy. It's actually entertaining. You can do it on the bus. And actually it'll tell you an awful lot about the way the person responds.
But what about people who aren't necessarily tech savvy?
Well, that's the point with games. You don't need to be tech savvy with games. But also a lot of the world of online recruitment is actually steering candidates into an employer's process themselves, so they will drive what the information they need, but actually how do you filter and how do you filter in a quality manner high volumes of candidates. So one of my clients is a major global bank. They have something like 100,000 people apply for 4,000 jobs each year. That is a huge administrative process. The old school of actually scoring which university they came from versus actually are they any good, you know, and I can tell you now the only factor that will really drive success in an individual is determination, so you have to tally that with the skill sector. But
employers these days, you know, also use things like social media to check the background of people. You know, how much of that plays into this?
I think social media checking is more about validating what you think you've already heard and seen. So if you're presenting yourself as a professional individual that's very upper crust or whatever, and then there's a different story, telling a different story when they look into your social media background, people are looking for consistency. So my message with that one is it's about personal reputation. So the world of social media is very much about an opportunity to manage your own personal reputation, and something we should all be very mindful of these days.
Well, let's see if this is the way everyone heads. Thanks very much, Paul, for coming in. This year, Singapore celebrates 50 years of independence as a relatively young